all seem to be having a good time. Awfully rude of you not to invite me, don't you think?
I'm getting bored making the same videos about 2v8 stats. So instead, I've chosen to stir the pot and give my own hot takes. All these arguments are just my opinion. And without further ado, let's get into it. I've mentioned multiple times in various videos how Trapper is restricted severely in comparison to other characters in 2v8. Of course, I'm going to advocate for him to have most or all of his traps at the start of a match. But that's not all I want to do for our poor poster child. We must make his traps feel even more dangerous. Here is my proposal for which add-ons to use. Honing Stone. When a survivor frees themselves from a trap, they fall into the dying state instead of the injured state. And Iridescent Stone. Automatically resets and arms a random disarmed bear trap every 30 seconds. If the survivor waits to be rescued, they risk being picked up by a killer. But even if the killers cannot retrieve the trapped survivor in time, if they free themselves, a teammate then must pick them up, or the survivor has to use their ability to pick themselves up. This helps waste time and forces survivors to go on a power cooldown. In addition, with the maps being as large as they are, and the killer partner being unable to reset traps, it makes sense to have Eerie Stone. But these aren't the only add-ons that could work. There are two others that come to mind. Bloody Coil. When a healthy survivor disarms a bear trap, they become injured. Or Tension Spring. Automatically resets a trap 2 seconds after a survivor has escaped from it. Now, Bloody Coil is a great way to have survivors get injured without even getting trapped. Damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of situation. But 2v8 is full of casual players. We already have people being left unhooked to die, or teammates afraid to do gens with killers around. So having players afraid to be beneficial to their team and disarm traps might cause more problems for everyone. However, with how busted Medic is as a class, Escapist having self-care after one hook state, and medkits available in chests, perhaps I'm ignoring the possibility that players won't just take the hit and reset, or disarm traps while they're injured. I'm not objecting to having Bloody Coil, but I think traps should be made more dangerous when they snare a survivor rather than scarier to interact with. As for Tension Spring, while it also helps automatically reset traps, a killer usually gets to the trapped survivor in time and picks them up anyway, rendering it useless. This is why I think Eerie Stone may work better, because if you don't know which traps have been reset, it'll be easier to punish unaware survivors. One type of class I see requested often is a totem-related class for both survivors and killers, since totems currently are useless in 2v8. And I hate to admit it, but I don't think they'd work out for 2v8. So let's talk about why, starting with hexes. For those that don't know, hexes are killer perks that are attached to a totem on the map. This allows for some pretty oppressive perks to exist, with the condition that they can be removed at any time by a survivor who cleanses it. But if we were to simply copy and paste hexes into the game, that means we have a class where you could force a killer to have nothing by the end of the match. The beauty of a hex build in 1v4 is the ability to protect your stronger hexes and have them synergize to create a unique and powerful storm. But with how fast gens are going, I don't think a killer wants to risk losing any more power with a pre-made hex class instead of one that fits their own needs. Even if you allowed killers to reignite hexes, it's just a chore to manage when you have more pressing objectives. The easy solution, of course, is to just take out the totem condition altogether. So then basically we're back to totems being useless again. But before we completely dismiss hexes altogether, let's see which ones could be used without totems and which would still need a totem condition. Thrill of the Hunt and Undying. These two could be made as base kit if the class abilities were attached to totems. Dominance could also be used in place of Undying to temporarily protect each individual totem. Blood Favor. This perk blocks pallets within a limited radius from a survivor that takes a hit, with maps being so large, pallets being so plentiful, and remote sprint burst being as busted as it is. This would be a great counter to all of that. No totem needed. Crowd control. This hex blocks the last several vaults a survivor jumps through permanently until the hex is cleansed. I think there are two ways to go about this. You either have these vaults only remain blocked for a limited time, like Blood Favor, or you just go with cruel limits. In addition, Blood Favor and Crowd Control should not be put into the same class. No totem needed if the permanent condition is removed. Devour Hope. No. Face the Darkness. A little redundant with the aura reveal, but it would help both killers find their next target. It would also give the Scout's Calm Spirit ability more usage. And unlike other hexes, this hex deactivates when the cursed survivor goes down into the dying state, making it harder for a survivor to find the hex and cleanse it. Two problems, however. You have 2 Terra Radii, making it harder for survivors to be outside of it to scream. Second, the injured survivor usually gets caught by one or both killers rather quickly. Therefore, stopping the intended effect before it gets any traction. Would be good to test first to see if this gets any value. Fortune's Fool, otherwise known as Plaything. With tonics taking up totem spaces, there's just not enough room for 8 totems. Still, having even half the survivor team with Oblivious running around trying to destroy totems is a good time waster. You could also have this perk as the only hex in a class, but then it would conflict with an all Hex class if both are used in the same match. Probably best to forgo this perk altogether and use a different perk to make players oblivious. Haunted Ground. Instead of a one-time exposure status effect, a class that uses a modified Starstruck that activates upon picking up a survivor would be better. It would dissuade pallet and flashlight saves and catch survivors in the area off guard. Huntress Lullaby. A great perk for punishing missed skill checks, especially with twice the amount of survivors on the map. However, it could be removed before it gets any traction. In 1v4, upon receiving your first skill check, you get a notification that the hex is in play. In 2v8, you have 8 survivors who will learn about this perk within the first few minutes of the game and go looking for the totems. Survivors would be burning through both Undying and or Dominance to get Huntress Lullaby before you see any value. I don't think this is a viable hex to use. No One Escapes Death. Could be a good choice, given how fast gens go. Now, sure, someone could spend time removing all the totems, especially if they get a map from a chest, so I'd like to test this perk out in a playtest to see how effective it is before even proposing it as a possible endgame class ability. It would remain as a totem and keep the aura reveal when you get close to it so that survivors can find it. Pentimento. No gen regress or slowdown should be tied to a class. It should be a base kit for all killers. This is why Ruin and Wretched Fate should also not be considered as class abilities. Retribution. Redundant with the aura reveal, Oblivious should be saved for other classes, especially since this status only affects the totem cleanser. The Third Seal. No. 2 can play. This would be funny as hell, especially with all the pallets and flashlighters. It needs to be rebalanced for 2v8 since there are way more ways to blind and stun killers, but you can make this a non-totem ability and pair it with something like Spirit Fury in a class. So we're left with Blood Favor, Crowd Control, Face the Darkness, No-Ed, and 2 can play, with Thrill of the Hunt, Undying, and Dominance as some form of base kit. Then we have boons. Let's just cut to the chase. Boon, Circle of Healing. Busted, repetitive. We have Medic. Boon, Exponential. Repetitive. We have base kit Unbreakable. Boon, Dark Theory. Ain't no way killers will want survivors to have more haste when we have remote sprint burst on Escapist. Boon, Elimination. If you're desperate. Which leaves us with Boon, Shadow Step. This would be a great option. There is a ton of aura reveal, so having a safe area to take shelter in would be awesome. Plus it only takes a few seconds for one of the killers to snuff the boon. However, since classes still allow for up to 4 people to stack one roll, while there are enough totems to go around, Should half the map become safe zones for survivors? No. Which is why each class should be limited to 3 players max, but that's a conversation for a different day. So, here is the new class I am suggesting. Elusive. The premise of Elusive is that it stops chases before they start and helps hide the player and their teammates from being revealed. Elusive comes with a Fog Vial. Reveal ability. A modified inner focus. Reveals the killer to all the other teammates whenever they hit or down you. Only when a teammate becomes injured is the killer's aura revealed to you. Team ability. Boon Shadow Step. Once you boon a totem, there is a long cooldown before you can start blessing another totem, even if your boon gets snuffed. If a fellow player has put up a boon, when you bless a totem, it'll take longer. Using the ability to pick yourself up from the dying state will snuff your existing boon, or put the boon ability on cooldown if not in use. Unlockable ability. Fortunately, there are plenty of stealth perks that could be used here and interchanged. Here is what I chose. After one hook state, gain late-footed and dance with me, or teamwork, toughen up for a team-based approach. I don't want a meme perk only class for survivors. Look, I want people to complete the objective. Sue me! But that doesn't mean I think all meme perks should be dismissed. I do like the idea of balancing a class with both practical and fun perks. Chemical Trap and Bada Bada Boom. Hell yeah! There are pallets and vaults galore, making these great perks to reward gen progress and add some excitement to chases. Deception. Hell yeah! I think this would be a fun ability to use in chase and to use as a distraction on the other side of the map. Diversion. Hell yeah! Who doesn't love throwing a pebble? Bardic Inspiration and 1, 2, 3, 4. No. Sorry. No more gen speed increases, please. I know, I love playing instruments too, but it's just not a viable option. Dramaturgy. We have remote sprint burst. We can't really start incorporating other exhaustion perks until we sort this out and limit class sizes. Scene partner. Okay. I'm conflicted. I think it could be. I think it could work, but you have 2 killers on the and I mean it. Okay, never mind. Plot twist. No, I just don't want it. I just don't want it. Okay, listen. I'm usually good at articulating counterpoints, but I just don't want to see a fellow player trying to meme with killers and failing miserably because the novelty of 2v8 is dead and no killer wants to befriend survivors after waiting 20 minutes to get into a lobby. I'm sorry, I just see it as a hinder. Red herring. Maybe. The issue is leading killers to a gen that has players working on it, especially if they're on death hook, or the killer just ignores the notification since they're already distracted hearing 20 other sounds at that moment. Air delusion. Hell yeah! You can place a decoy of yourself on gens, totems, exit gates, and chests. Head on. Yes! Let's bully the killers some more. No! Another class that players have asked for is a chest-centric class. Getting better items and making them accessible to other players seems like a fantastic idea. But stacking up a player with only chest perks and having them loiter around all game would be a choice. Let's go through the chest and item related perks and see what could work for 2v8. Ace in the hole. Giving add-ons for items when there are so many chests that can be opened and rummaged through feels too overpowered, so I'm gonna pass on that. Appraisal. It could work if it's not token-based. However, the increased rummage speed could be a good perk to have. Built to last. Being able to refill charges on an item you're holding would be a good ability. The problem is that there is a plethora of items on the map, especially if a player is opening chests with a key. You might have to limit each item to 1 full refill since 2v8 allows for up to 4 people to stack 1 class. Change of plan. Speaking of items and lockers, this perk allows you to take a toolbox, go into a locker, and swap it out for a fully charged medkit. While I like the idea of an unlockable perk where you can self-heal, Escapist has self-care, and Medic is just faster in general. There are also way more chests in 2v8, making it easier to find a medkit or find a key to open and rummage chests for one. Exaltation. When you stun a killer with a pallet while holding an item, the item's rarity goes up, and its charges are refilled 25%. Would be perfect for 2v8 given the amount of pallets on the map. Hardened. We have Scout's Calm Spirit and Aura Reveal perk already, so making someone open chests to gain the same abilities on a different class is just repetitive and tedious. Moment of Glory. With so much easy access to healing, why would anyone use Moment of Glory? You have to unlock or rummage through 2 chests, then become broken for a minute upon getting hit before you automatically heal up. Opening chests is easy, but with 2 killers after you, how likely is it that you'll outlast both of them for a full minute when you're already in chase? And once it's been used, guess what? You have to go open or rummage through 2 more chests to gain the same effect. No one's gonna pick this over Medic. Pharmacy. We have enough healing in this game mode, so a player getting a guaranteed medkit shouldn't be added. And since 2v8 isn't a stealth game mode for the most part, chest opening sounds don't need to be reduced. However, opening chests faster could be one of the perks to this class. Plunderer's Instinct. Chest and item aura reveal is a given for any chest-related class. Residual Manifest. While I like that this perk gives the killer the blindness status effect whenever they are blinded, especially with how aura reveal heavy 2v8 is, we just got Torchbearer. We don't need to guarantee a player another flashlight after rummaging through a chest. Scavenger. God, I really hate how convoluted this perk is. First, you need to have a toolbox that is empty of all charges. When you rummage through an opened chest, you get a toolbox. While repairing a generator, you gain tokens when you hit great skill checks and get up to 5 maximum. Once you reach the maximum token count, your toolbox is automatically refilled of all charges and your gen repair speed is reduced by 50% for 30 seconds. Bro, I'm just gonna use build to last instead. Specialist. No. Both chest unlocks and rummaging give you tokens to put on gens to create permanent charges. Gens are already too fast, and Behavior had to remake Guide's class perks to remove gen progress bonuses because it was too OP. Streetwise. Streetwise has been reworked to give players more charges on items found in chests, and then reveal the killer's aura when those charges are depleted. Once again, too many chests, meaning too many items that could help breeze through healing and gen repair even more efficiently. The chest class could be called Supporter or something, I don't know. That's the best I could come up with. Supporter would come with a key. If no key is given for this class, faster chest opening speed could be used instead. Reveal skill. Plunderer's Instinct to see chests and items. You'll also be able to rummage through chests faster with Appraisal. Your aura is revealed to your teammates when you are opening or rummaging through a chest. Team skill. For the active skill, I'll be moving away from chests. I think Mirrored Illusion could work. If they want to beef up this perk, the decoy's silhouette could be revealed to all teammates. When a killer hits a decoy or interacts with the object that the decoy is on, the killer's aura is revealed. Unlockable skill. Built to last, but if this is too strong, Exaltation would be a good substitute. I think this is one of the most debated topics in the 2v8 space. Legion was added, reworked, and then put on hiatus for the last 2 iterations. Some players at this point believe that Legion has actually been removed entirely due to the lack of updates. So, what is my opinion? Do I miss Legion? No, he wasn't very fun to play against and I would get bored. Do I think he should be removed? No. I like to try and keep him in, actually. I mean, I'm not going to love every character in this game mode, but so what? I want it to succeed, and that means allowing some of the less enjoyable characters as options. As for Behavior, they can't guarantee every licensed killer for 2v8, so they need to use as many of their original characters as possible. And Legion is easy, the perfect killer for any casual player to choose without worrying about complicated game mechanics. But do I blame anyone who is out here arguing to keep characters like Legion, Pig, Plague, Doctor, and Onryo out? No, because managing status effects with people who don't have the same level of experience as you is gonna be rough. Imagine telling a new player not to cleanse themselves of infection against Plague while they're fully broken with only one hook state. Imagine keeping your condemn levels low while your reverse bear trap is ticking down to your death. I know Legion is a touchy subject, and I know a lot of people think it was solely the power of complaining survivors that got Legion removed, but they're ignoring the fact that they tried to rework him in Iteration 5 before fully kill switching them. I also understand that killers enjoyed the simplicity of Legion and how they were able to keep up with the pace of the gens. I've made it clear in other videos that gen pressure should be universal, not tied to a character or a class. I think between survivor buffs, the catch-up mechanic, Legion's removal, and now tonics, we have put killers in a very difficult spot. I'd like to see Legion come back, but I don't want to see him every other game to combat these problems. Unfortunately, this situation with the Legion leads to what I think is the game mode's weakest point: the design choice to keep 2v8 as close as possible to 1v4. For killers, having consistency makes it easier to pick up their faves without extra thought. You can finally play the characters that are weak or suffer against the current meta in 1v4. Making characters change abilities for 2v8 would just add a learning curve for everyone, causing drama if the 2v8 version of them is heavily liked by one side and hated by the other. The closest we got to deviation was with Hillbilly in Iteration 1, where he couldn't one-shot survivors anymore, but revving his chainsaw near a survivor would give them the exposed status. In this second iteration, they reverted the change because it made Hillbilly way too weak, especially when there were barely any other killers on the roster at that time. This is also why I think behavior is extremely stuck when it comes to Legion. How do you have a power that involves quick hits in succession, but make it work for 2v8? For Survivor, all the hours of learning how to loot killers, make synergized perk combos, and strategically complete gens is not really necessary for 2v8. The pressure 1v4 puts on its players has been lifted, making gameplay easily digestible for the casual player, which leaves those of us with thousands of hours bored given our dedication to the mental 5D chess we play every time we boot up the game. In addition, classes are forced to have a team skill, reveal skill, and an unlockable skill, limiting which perks can be added, and then further limiting which perks can work together thematically. Arcade modes aren't meant to be sweaty, time-consuming, or require a lot of brain power, but that doesn't mean it has to be a watered-down version of 1v4. Since the game mode is not permanent yet, this is the perfect time to get experimental with different perk combos, interactive items, and new side quests. This is especially pressing if killers will be kept as copy-pasted buffed versions of themselves. Ask any critic of 2v8 and they'll tell you all about the long queue times for killer and the MMR mismatching for 1v4. Last year, 2v8 was in the game for 11 weeks, 3 out of 4 iterations being extended an extra week. If we combine that with the other events, 3 weeks for Blood Moon, 3 weeks for the Twisted Masquerade, 3 weeks for Haunted by Daylight, 5 weeks for Bone Chill, and roughly 5 in total for the 5 Chaos Shuffle iterations, that's roughly 30 out of 52 weeks of the game potentially being affected due to alternate game lobbies. Some critics have recommended that 2v8 should become permanent right now, with the hope that the hype and novelty will die off, leading to normal queues with the option to play the arcade mode. It gets updated as needed, but never goes offline. I'm open-minded to 2v8 staying for a couple months as a test run to track play retention, but my concern with 2v8 becoming permanent is that it will become a dead lobby space in the long run. We don't have the same player count as, say, Overwatch or Valorant, where they have a plethora of normal and competitive queues alongside a variety of arcade modes. So, I want to try another type of schedule. Let's replace Blood Moon with 2v8. Then, from August into September, to take advantage of the newcomers from the anniversary event. Each of these iterations can be 3 weeks long from the start, and given enough time to bring in new killers or themed items for both sides to interact with. The Resident Evil iteration was fun and creative. It hyped up new skins, new items, and a new iconic map. In comparison, the Konami one felt more low-key. There were new skins, but no new maps due to Midwitch's design and Dracula's lack of a map. There are also tensions because of the sliding power towards Survivor and the lack of a break between 2v8 iterations. However, my preference may make the situation worse. Casuals flock to 2v8 because it is temporary, especially when it's advertised as a 2-week stint every single time. If we changed it to less iterations per year and halved the amount of time it is in DBD, we'll still have queue issues just twice a year instead of 4 times. And if you make it special with new skins, interactable items, and challenges, how bland is it going to be when 2v8 becomes permanent? I believe that Behavior's end goal is to make 2v8 permanent. In the meantime, we have these iterations that build upon the foundation. But with each iteration, it becomes more survivor-sided and autopiloted. I just don't know at what point Behavior thinks 2v8 will be ready to become a staple in the game, if that is their plan, making it harder to suggest which path to take to get to their goal. I like the idea of 2v8 staying as a game modifier like Bone Chill or Haunted by Daylight, but for such a long time requested game mode, with no other queues like competitive to give players variety, it makes sense that I'm in the minority with this take. I've taken enough of your time, so let me know what you think in the comments section. Do you agree with any of my opinions? Do you have any of your own hot takes? If you'd like to know my specific opinions on class changes, minus Torchbearer, I'd suggest watching my video, More Killers, Less Variety, Is DBD's 2v8 Stagnating? At the 11:49 mark. I also talked at length about generator speeds and how to go about correcting those at the 2012 timestamp. But for now, I'll be seeing you guys in the next video.